yeah. It's your boy Carlo G, level one judge for Top Tech Games and at times for Magus Games here in Cebu City and in Cagayan de Oro. Another here with another episode of Judge Call. This is a regular segment here in Top Deck Games where we dive in the new mechanics of the latest set, Dominaria United. I'm so sorry if my voice keeps on cutting out. Just came from work and it's been a very rainy day here in Cebu City. So yeah, a bit of cold there. So yeah, let's dive in. Hello Anton. No, I am not single. Unfortunately, you can see the ring there. Anyway, yeah, comment down below anything, any reactions, violent reactions, comments, concerns, and all that good stuff. If you guys have judge questions, you can leave them down in the comment section as well. So we can try to answer them at the end of this section if we have time. If we don't, we will save that for next judge call. Okay. So what the topics? A little rundown of the topics we will have for today. First and foremost, we have our topics and mechanics. First, we will look at the returning mechanics, domain and kicker. We will also look at the new mechanics in list, stun counters, and read ahead. Also, we also have some special interactions with some of the cards in the set, the Defilers, Vorin Clicks, and read ahead, and of course, the most um, heated argumentative card in the whole set, Sarah Paragon. Also, in addition, I will also add some modern interactions that we can look at. We have Delve versus Trinosphere, Walking Ballista versus Dress Down, and Dredge versus an Empty Library. All right. Um, Hello to the 7 viewers that are watching right now. Thank you very much for joining us for episode 4 of Judge Call. So here we go. Let us begin. So the first mechanic we're gonna talk about is domain. Now, domain is a old mechanic first introduced in Invasion Block. Domain is an example of an ability word. What do you mean by the ability word? It doesn't have its own rules in the comprehensive rules by itself, but it's just a reminder of what you have to look out for, or a reminder of what it entails, or what it's looking for in particular. It doesn't have its own like rules make up there or anything. It's just a reminder. As you can see, it's italicized. So yeah, just a reminder. Now, in this instance, domain deals the number of basic land types you control. So it looks at your plains, island, swamp, mountains, and forests. So, for example, we have the brawler here, and if you have Rowgrin Triumph, his power should be 3. So if you have a lot of those triumphs and shocklands, it's very easy to get to 5 domain. The max of domain will always be 5 because those are only basic land types that we have. Yeah. Um, Now, we always look for the basic land type. So the basic land type is those island, mountain, swamp, plains, etc. Now, if there's forest in the name of the card, it doesn't count. So the Carpusland Forest doesn't count. For waste, unfortunately, we have not made waste as a basic land yet. So you don't see a thing here. Waste doesn't count. Hi, Tito Tani. We have a quick question right here by Mr. Christian Ryan Cruz right there. Shout out to you, Tito Tani. No, waste do not count as a basic land as of now. So waste do not count yet. Yet, maybe they might change it, but as of now, waste do not count. Yep. And for Orborg, of course, Orborg is a very famous card in both Pioneer and Modern formats, where each land is a swamp in addition to its other land types. So, for example, if we put an Orborg and this Carpusland forest next to each other, the non-basic land will get the swamp basic land type. So yep, yep. Okay. So we have an interesting note here from Anton. Yeah, waste is a typeless basic land. Yeah, it's a basic land, but not a basic land type. Yeah, more or less. Yeah. Thank you there, Anton. We acknowledging the presence of Sir Joel. Good evening, Sir Joel. Thank you very much for spending the time to review this one. Thank you, Sir Joel, for stopping by. Um, hello, Sir Justin. Good evening, and hello, Sir Miguel Joshua. Good evening as well, and of course, Rans. Good evening, Sir Rans. Right, moving on. Next, we have kicker. Kicker has its own entry in the comprehensive rules. We have 702.33. Kicker was first introduced also in Invasion Block. Kicker counts as an optional additional cost. This does not change the converted mana value, but it does count towards the total mana spent, if that matters to you people who play mana drain and those kind of things, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. So yeah, for example, Benalish Sleeper here, even if you do pay the kicker cost, its converted mana cost will always be 2. When you pay the kicker cost, you also usually get an additional effect or a modification of the original effect. For Dominaria United, most kicker spells only have one cost, but some have two. For kicker spells in this set, you may pay the kicker cost only once, or for kicker cost with kickers with two costs, you may pay them twice. For example, here at Temporal Firestorm, you can pay the kicker of one and a white, or one and a blue, or both. So you can either be paying 4 red, red, white, or 4 red, red, blue, or 5 red, red, white, blue. Yeah. We also give a shout, acknowledging the presence of Mr. Felix. Sir, good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you very much. Yep, that's for kicker. Next, enlist. We're moving on to our new mechanics for Dominaria United. The first one is enlist. Entry 702.154. Enlist represents a static ability and a triggered ability into one. Enlist means as this creature attacks, you may tap up to one untapped creature you control that you didn't choose to attack and that has haste or has been under your control continuously since the turn began. When you do, this creature gets plus X plus 0 until end of turn, where X is a tapped creature's power. So essentially, enlist is like you're asking the creature to attack. A creature attacks, and the other creature helps out. It's like a push mechanic. Okay. Additional notes here: you can enlist a creature that you have chosen to attack with. So even if the other creature has vigilance, as if you chose it to attack, it cannot enlist. So you can also enlist creatures with haste. This has been the most asked question when this mechanic was revealed. If a creature with haste can be enlisted, yes, they can. So again, like I said, you can enlist creatures with vigilance as long as you have not attacked with them. As long as this vigilance creature did not attack during this combat step, it can be enlisted. Okay, next. Additional notes here. You cannot respond to a player choosing a creature to enlist, but you can respond to when the power of the creature is added. Now, you cannot respond to the player with the enlist creature when they're moving to other attack step. You cannot respond to the player choosing which creature to enlist. But you can respond to when the creature's power is added, when it gets that plus X plus 0. That's the opportunity where you can respond. Um, if you destroy the enlisted creature in response of the trigger, The game will look at last known information, comprehensive rule 608.2 of that creature's power. Now, there are times when the game looks back at last known information, even if you tried to kill the creature that wanted to enlist to give itself a point, it will still look back to see which was the how much the power was. So even if you do kill the creature, the game will still look at the last known information. Okay. Last point for enlist. If for any reason you can decrease the power of the enlisted creature to negative numbers, if you have dismember or bile blight, you will use a zero instead. It cannot go to negatives. You cannot make the creature's power negative. So it doesn't minus in this case. So, for example, I have the Coalition Warbrute. It moves to attack step, and I will use the Yavimaya Steel Crusher to enlist. So I tap my Yavimaya Steel Crusher to enlist on the Warbrute. In response to the power being added, I use Wild Blight. So essentially giving Yavimaya Steel Crusher -3/-3. What happens is the Coalition Warbrute will not get -3 -1. So that's 3 minus. So 2 minus 3, that's -1. No, it won't get -1 power. Instead, it will get +0 power. Okay, thank you guys. Next, a very interesting mechanic that might become evergreen. We don't know, but we might see this becoming an evergreen mechanic. We have stun counters. A stun counter on a permanent creates a replacement effect that stops the permanent from untapping. The effect is if a permanent with a stun counter on it will become untapped, instead remove a stun counter from it. Multiple stun counters will trigger individually but only apply when there is an instance of untapping. So for example, if a creature has multiple stun counters, like let's say 3, once we go move to an opportunity where that creature is untapped, only one will be removed. Stun counters don't matter the method of untapping, either by untap step or spells or abilities. Sorry about that typo. The stun counter does not give any additional abilities to the creature. The stun counter have their own rule in place that applies to the creature. So things like let's say if a creature has a stun counter on it and then you play dress down trying to circumvent the stun counter, that doesn't work like that. The ruling of the untap mechanic is on the stun counter itself. And stun counters, we have comprehensive rules 122.1D. Thank you very much. Right. Next, read ahead. So this is a new mechanic, very interesting new mechanic, which deals with sagas. We all know what sagas do by this point. These are the enchantments that have multiple effects that happen over multiple turns. But Wizards decided to try a new way where you can read ahead on the chapters of a saga. Now, read ahead also on the um, comprehensive rules 702.1558. Read ahead is a keyword found on some sagas and represent two static abilities. First ability is as this saga enters the battlefield, choose a number from 1 to the saga's final chapter number, which is usually 3 or 4. This saga enters the battlefield with the chosen number of lore counters on it. The second ability is chapter abilities of this saga can't trigger the turn it entered the battlefield unless it has exactly the number of lore counters it specified in the chapter symbol of that ability. Essentially, when you play a read ahead saga, you can choose either 1, 2, 3, 1 up to its last saga. So in this case, for Facing of Valnir and the Elder Dragon War, so you can either choose 1, 2, or 3. When the card enters, let's say for example for Elder Dragon War, you choose 2. So when the saga enters, you move right to chapter 2. Discard any number of cards and draw that many cards. So that's the effect you get. You won't get the first chapter anymore. Um, Same thing if you chose 3. Let's say again with the Elder Dragon War, you pay your 4 mana, you put it in, and you say, I'll choose 3. So once it enters, you only get the 4/4 dragon with flying. And then state-based actions check. The saga is then sacrificed because it has equal to the number of lore. The lore counters have an is equal to the highest chapter number. So if you choose 1, it's all good. So it goes out as normal. If you choose 2, you miss the first one. The first chapter will not happen. If you choose 3, the 2 chapters 1 and 2 will not happen. Very interesting um, mechanic. Very interesting spin on how we play sagas. Okay, next. Okay, those are the mechanics for Dominaria United. Any questions? Just put them down below. Let me know. We can ask that here. Next, we have the Defiler cycle. So those who played during New Phyrexia or those who have abundant experience playing with Phyrexian mana, here is your callback, ladies and gentlemen. So this is a callback to Phyrexian mana from New Phyrexia. When a Defiler is let me just read the text of the defilers. They're just the same. It's just the difference is the color. So an additional cost to cast blue permanent spells, you may pay 2 life. Those spells cost 1 of that color less if you paid life this way. This effect reduces only the amount of the colored mana you pay, and it has a effect on the bottom, and it has a keyword ability on top. For the Defiler of Dreams, we have Flying, and whenever you cast a blue permanent spell, draw a card. So, Defilers only discount permanent spells. I have seen a lot of players already, some players casting instant or sorceries. They only discount permanent spells. Um, okay, we have a quick question here. We have a question here from Tito Tani, Christian Ryan Cruz. Can I disenchant a saga before the counters are placed, or the saga ability resolves before I destroy it? It depends when you destroy it, Tito Tani. If you destroy it during the upkeep, well and good, nothing happens. If you destroy it in response to the ability happening, the action of putting a lore counter will always happen. That is a game action, and you cannot respond to that. You can respond to when the ability is put on the stack, and it will still happen. The best time to destroy a saga is during when on cast. We have a question here on cast. Casting of the saga, you mean, Tito Tani? Is that what you mean? If on cast, it's not on the board yet. It cannot be destroyed yet if it's still on the stack. You cannot disenchant something from on the stack. If you mean when it on the stack, when you disenchant, it means you destroy the permanent. But if it's still on the stack, you can't destroy it. It's still on the stack. Maybe you mean when the saga enters the battlefield, whatever chapter it was chosen, or if we're just talking about regular sagas, when it enters the battlefield, whatever saga is supposed to trigger on that, when it comes in, it will still happen. Um, uh, Mikey is saying, can you respond to the read ahead trigger? No, you can't. Read ahead essentially is, sorry, back. Read ahead is essentially the same as putting the saga in play, because when you put the saga, let's just use a regular saga for example. When a regular saga goes into the battlefield, you directly put 1 lore counter on it, and then the chapter 1 trigger is put on the stack. If you're asking if you can respond to read ahead, let's say for example I want to put two lore counters on the saga. It's the same thing. When you're putting the Elder Dragon War into play, and on the I say read ahead on two, and then you try to destroy it, the second chapter will still happen. He won't get the first one, he won't get the last one because you destroyed it, but the second trigger and the second chapter will still happen. I hope I answered your question, Tito Tani. I hope that was clear. Again, if you want to okay, cool. Thank you. Again, to reiterate, you cannot respond. You can respond to a saga entering the battlefield. Can you respond to putting the lore counter on the card? Anton, unfortunately, you can't. The putting of the lore counter will always happen. It's the same as putting I believe it's the same as putting a loyalty counter on a planeswalker. You cannot respond to putting of the counter or adding to the counter, but you can respond to the ability. Yep. Reiterate Tito Tani's question, when the read ahead chapter goes in and you announce how many lore counters I'm putting on the saga, you cannot respond to me putting lore counters of my chosen number on the saga, but you can respond to the ability of that chapter. Thank you. I hope I have. Uh, okay, Chris. Okay, check. Okay, going back to my presentation. Okay, an interesting interaction with Warren clicks and read ahead. If you control if you control Warren clicks and you say I'm gonna put one counter on my read ahead, Warren clicks will see this and add two counters. It will double. If you say three, you will put six and nothing happens. So just a warning for those who have Warren clicks and read ahead. It also works if your opponent has foreign clicks. If you say two, you want to put two counters, it comes in with one. If you want to say three, um, divide by two, then round down. Same thing. So Warren clicks does interact with sagas. Okay. I want to note, for example, if you control Warren clicks. Yes. The thing here, a question by Anton here is, but you can choose four to read ahead to two, right? Because three is the max example. Yes, that is correct. Thank you for pointing that out. I forgot to put it on my notes. You can when you're reading ahead, the maximum number you can put is just the maximum amount of chapters on a saga. I think I mentioned it before. But thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Anton. Okay. What happens when lore counter is half? The effect repeats on current lore effects. What do you mean, Chrissy? What happens when the lore counter is half? What do you mean by half? Like putting it on? I believe. Do you mean, Chrissy, if your opponent is? Yeah, it is rounded down, Chrissy. Let's say, for example, you have your phasing of Zalfir. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. It moves up a counter, so you're supposed to put one there, but it's half, then rounded down. So what happens is one divided by two is 1.5, then rounded down, so that's 0. So if one counter is supposed to be placed on a permanent, it is half, so it will be 0. So any one is instantly 0. Thank you there, Anton. We have Manuel Neri, also another judge from Cagayan de Oro. Good evening, sir. Ban foreign clicks, math is hard. Yes. Dividing and multiplying by 2 is difficult. Okay, we have another question here. Will you be uploading standalone video for Judge Carlo or live streams a new format for this show? We'll see, Mikey. We'll see. We'll see. Next slide, please. Here we go. Here we go. Does Sarah Paragon work? So what happens here is, how does Sarah Paragon work at all? So let's read Sarah Paragon here. It's 2 white white for a creature angel, mythic, 3/4 flying. Once during each of your turns, you may play a land from your graveyard or cast a permanent spell with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard. If you do, it gains when this permanent is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, exile it, and you gain 2 life. It should work like we have a up question here. If the opponent controls the clicks and the saga will be stuck on his current lore counter, right? Yes, you are correct, Eric. As also said by Manuel and Anton in the chat. Yes, if your opponent has a Warren clicks, your sagas will be stuck in the current lore chapter. It will never move up until you destroy or get rid of the Warren clicks, because 1 divided by 2 is 0.5, rounded down is 0. So if you're putting 0 counters on your saga going up, nothing. Like every turn, yes, that is every turn until the Warren clicks is dealt with. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you again for the 12 people watching at home. Thank you very much for joining me this lovely Wednesday evening. Okay. So, Sarah Paragon, essentially, the issue here is rule from our comprehensive rules 400.7, an object that moves from one zone to another becomes a new object with no memory of or relation to its previous existence. So, have you ever had to fight against trying to kill a creature with a removal spell, then suddenly have it blinked away by a restoration angel? This is the rule that makes it so. So what happens is, the object is, if any of you remember Kaladesh and Aether Revolt Standard, the Shahili Rai Felidar Guardian, I think, the Felidar combo. This is the rule that makes it work. So what happens is the object is moved to another zone and it comes back. It's a new thing. It doesn't remember anything from its last thing. Okay, we have another random question here. So wait, if I have Soulscard Mage and use Needle Drop target foreign clicks, Needle won't get a minus one counter. Needle Drop is, I believe, if something was dealt damage. Yep, pretty much. Yep. Let's. I'll get back to you, Anton. I'll get back to you. Because it needs next reading for Warren clicks. Okay, so with this scenario, putting a creature or a land from the graveyard to the field, uh, the land being played a land and the creature being casted, it will have no memory of supposedly this next line, the last line where the permanent is put in the graveyard battlefield, exile it. But CR 407 has 9 exceptions. One of them is 4A. Effects from spells, activated abilities, triggered abilities that change the characteristics or control of a permanent spell on the stack continue to apply to the permanent that spell becomes. Effects from static abilities that give a permanent spell on the stack an ability that allows it to be cast for an alternative cost continue to apply to that permanent the spells become. Meaning, because of this exception to rule 400.7, it allows the permanent spells that we cast were for mana value 3 or less to continue to have that last sentence. So everything that we cast, non-land permanents we cast through Sarah Paragon from the graveyard have this and should work properly. The reason why Sarah Paragon is busted because once during each of your turns you may play a land. Here's the issue. Here's the issue now. Nothing in the nine um, exceptions of CR's 400.7 says anything about lands. Now lands are not played through triggered abilities, through spells, through activated abilities. The playing of land is a game action. Um, of the nine exceptions, you cannot there is no indication of lands. That currently makes Sarah Paragon doesn't work. The casting of non land permanents are still good. You cast your creatures there, your three CMC planeswalkers, all good. If they die or go back to the graveyard or exiled and you gain 2 life, that's all good. But of course, do have a counter of some sort, a dice or I don't know, a poker chip, something that does indicate that it has that ability. The issue here is lands. Yes, you can play your land from your graveyard, but it will not have this ability because of 400.7. That is the current issue with this card. Now imagine in older formats, fetch lands every day. In older formats, wasteland every day, every turn, at least every turn. So unfortunately, Sarah Paragon is currently busted until fixed. So hopefully we can get a errata there somehow. But for now, it will stay as like that for lands. For again, for non-creatures, it's all good. Okay. A question here from Chris regarding Sarah Paragon. If you got flickered, the one's turn will reset. I hmm. I'll get back to you on that, Chris. But my initial is I'm gonna say no because it says once during each turn. That's what I'm gonna say. But I believe that's a no. I will get back to you. I will answer you again unless one of our other judges in the chat would be so kind to also jump in if ever you know the answer. But yeah, for now I will say no. But we have Manuel here. We have Shamsi here with a yes. Show your work, joke. So it's a yes. Does it reset, Shamsi? We have a yes there, so it should reset. Flickered. Yep. It's right there. 400.1 flickered gets treated as a new permanent. So yes, Chris, you can do your degenerate EDH things with Sarah Paragon. Thank you, Shamsi, for the backup. Okay. Before I move on, I would like to answer Anton's question here. Where is that? I know. Wait, I'm moving ahead. If I have Soul Scar Mage and I use Needle Drop targeting Gorin clicks. So, Anton, regarding your question, you have Soul Scar Mage and your opponent has Warren clicks? Anton, are you there? I'm going to assume that Warren clicks is on the opposite side of the board. Okay. If an opponent would put one or more counters on a permanent or player, they put half that many. Yeah. Upon reading Warren clicks, yes. Soul Scar Mage, the one minus one counters will be halved. So if you're putting one using needle drop, assuming you've already dealt damage to Warren click somehow, some way, putting one minus one counter will reduce that amount. So he will get none. Nanza. Yeah. The same is true if you control Warring 6. If you put -1/-1 counters based on Soulscar Mage, it will be doubled. Yep. Right. I hope I've answered that question. We have a quick question here from Michael. How do you feel about the increasing number of cards that require you to keep track of new abilities as Sarah Paragon right now, or can't stay away from Innistrad? Well, from a judge's standpoint, we will, me personally, from a judge's standpoint, we do encourage our players to always put a kind of tracker on your permanents that have used this kind of abilities. I remember playing a certain Grease Fang player who reanimated a what you call this Grease Fang using Can Stay Away. Then when it was killed, he put it in the graveyard, and it took someone from outside to remind us that it came from Can't Stay Away. It is kind of extra step, Mikey. I would agree, but I would re- but my I would really feel that it is really a responsibility, most especially to the owner of the spell to keep track. It's more of they're making it they're giving players a little additional work to keep track of these kind of things. I would say it's fine as long as both players do their due diligence. Yes. Uh, we have runs here. I think someone a certain Grease Fang player. I don't know who that certain Grease Fang player is. He may or may not be in the chat. I don't know. Yep. Anyway, continuing. I hope I answered your question, Anton and Chris. Again, thank you, Manuel, for the backup. Okay, we are moving to our modern interactions. Now, I will say this on the record. There are times when judges get it wrong, and we are here. It is in our doctrine to whenever we give a incorrect ruling, we do our best to correct it as much as we can. So these happened in a recent FNM where I bundled up and made some mistakes. So I'm sharing it to you guys so you guys won't make the same mistakes. Yeah, I make the mistakes so you don't have to. Anyway, thank you. It's all about owning up to your mistakes, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, Delve versus Trinisphere. Now, Delve is each card you exile from your graveyard while casting this will pay for one. Trinisphere, as long as Trinisphere is untapped, each spell would cost less than 3 mana to cast cost additional 3 mana. With additional stuff there in open close parentheses. Okay. This is CR 601.2F. It's a bit wordy, so I have less down. So if you want to pause to read the entire thing, go right on ahead. I'm also it. This is the new thing I'm doing. I'm giving the comprehensive rules reference number, so you can look at it as well. So yeah, 601.2F. The way you cast a spell, after you have placed that spell from its current zone onto the stack, you look at first the base mana cost or its alternative mana cost. Then you add all additional mana costs. So we have kicker, we have I don't know what are the other alternate costs, but any other additional costs, like for example, uh, thrill of discovery, where you discard cards, all of those things. Also with village rights, yes, village rights, additional cost, you have to sacrifice a creature and all that good stuff. You also have all cost increases, like all of those stacks, parts, Thalia, Guardian of Straven, my number one example, and all cost reductions. If there are multiple cost reductions, the player may apply them in any order. If a reduction will be less than zero, it will be considered zero. You cannot get things for free. Then the result is locked in. So once you have done all of these steps, we move to a lock-in step. This is the amount of mana I'm gonna pay. Nothing can change that total cost during this point. So once you've already calculated the total amount, total cost and total amount, you cannot change it anymore. Now, this is where the question is: can you catch up to someone sacrificing a creature or paying life as a cost? This is where it says you can't, because the cost has been paid. No one can interact in between here, right? So next, finally, after all of those steps that we just discussed are done and paid for, we apply Trinisphere's effect. Trinisphere will always apply last. So no, whatever things there, the additional cost and all of that things, it will come down to Trinisphere. Okay. The mana value of the spell remains unchanged, no matter the total cost cast that it was. So Trinisphere finally applied Trinisphere's effect in the man if the mana component of the spell's cost is less than 3. Now, how does this work versus Delve? Since delving cards paid the cost of Murktide, delving 5 cards and blue is all good. As long as Trinisphere is concerned, it will see that the mana payment of the 5 generic there was paid through Delve. It's all good. So Delve is not a reduction, but another way of paying the cost. It's still paying. So essentially, Murktide, essentially all Delve cards that were paid through Delve, Trinisphere will say it's all good. You paid 2 blue mana, but I say you paid the whole 7, so all good. Okay, thank you for that. Next will be Walking Ballista versus Dress Down. Now, this is a two cards very popular in the modern format. So, Dress Down applies on layer 6. Layers. Layer 6 is the ability granting and removing effects layers, where you add abilities or take them away. That's where Dress Down applies. If you play this Dress Down, in response to Walking Ballista, let's say Ballista for 1, Ballista will come down and have no abilities. The first line, Walking Ballista enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters, will not be there, and Walking Ballista will enter as a 0/0 artifact creature construct. After state-based actions check, Walking Ballista will die and be put into the graveyard. So it doesn't matter how much mana you paid for Walking Ballista. Doesn't matter if you paid 2 or a million or whatever. When Dress Down is in play, Walking Ballista comes in as a blank state. Just imagine it's just blank, nothing there. So Walking Ballista will also apply to some creatures that deal with entering the battlefield with stuff. Yep. Yes, Chris, this applies to Hydras as well. So it applies with Modular, Arcbound Worker. So Modular 1, this enters the battlefield with +1/+1 counters on it. So it's a blank. It comes in as a 0/0/1. I chose Primordial Hydra here because the first, while making the slides, the first Hydra I found was Voracious Hydra, which doesn't work because Voracious Hydra is a 0/1. It comes in as a 0/1 and the abilities. So Hydras as well enters the battlefield with X -1 +1/+1 counters. It's blank. And lastly, very interesting as well, clone effects. So creatures that clone enter without cloning anything, as long as Dress Down's in the field. So when the clone comes in, it comes in as a 0/0 shapeshifter. It dies. It's a blank. Okay, we have a question here from Rans. Okay, let's check Territorial Maru. I do not know that card off the top of my head. Right. Okay, let's see what this does. Alright. So, it says here, domain. Territorial Maro's power and toughness are each equal to twice the number. Yep. Runs. It enters. When it enters, it dies. Best worded by again our friend of the show, Mr. Manuel Neri. Dead on arrival. Territorial Maru is has his power and toughness is based on the number of lands number of basic land types you control. But the moment he enters, he is a blank slate, so his power toughness are zero. Any characteristic defining effects are wiped out because of dress down. Right. Okay, I hope I answered that one. Thank you, Manuel, again as usual. Unless you have an Anthem. Yes, of course, Mr. Anton. Anthem effects, those that, let's say, creatures you control gets +1/+1, applies in layer 7. So during the layering, you apply those effects by the layer. So dress down applies first, removing all abilities from it. And then we give the layer 7, which deals with power toughness. So for example, if we have our worker with dress down in play, it comes in, if you have an anthem effect, it comes in as a 1/1. So it doesn't die outright. But the moment that dress, I don't know, right? Yeah, the same thing. It doesn't die outright because it still has the anthem. But yeah, power toughness related effects apply on layer 7. A discussion for another video. Right, thank you very much. Next, thank you, Anton. Dredge versus an empty library. Right. Um, 702.528. Dredge is a static ability that functions only while the card with Dredge is in the player's graveyard. Dredge N means as long as you have at least N cards in your library, if you would draw a card, you may instead mill N cards and return this card from your graveyard to your library. So, additional 702.52b. A player with fewer cards in their library than the number required by Dredge can't mill any of them this way. So, for example, if you have 4 cards in your library and you want to attempt to dredge back Stick with him, who has dredge 5, you can. This is a replacement effect to, I'm not sure. It's a replacement effect to drawing a card, but it still has a requirement for you to dredge or for you to replace it with a draw. So the situation was when player A's library was empty. Could he dredge? No, you can't, because as it says here, you need exactly N. For example, dredge 3 from Life of the Loam. You need exactly 3 cards in order to dredge. If you have less than 3 cards or you can't satisfy that amount, you cannot dredge. Thus, you have to draw a card. So yeah, if you draw from the end of the library, then you lose the game. Alrighty. I think that is it. This is my last. Yep. Okay. A good 1 hour for Judge Call. Oh no. It's Tito Jeff here. Was there a Paragon question here? I think there were some questions in the back, Tito Jeff, but I'm not sure if there was. I think there were some. Yeah, not much questions on the Paragon actually, but yeah. Shout out to Mr. Jeff Tan. Good evening, good sir. Wrong stream, good sir. Wrong stream. Anyway, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me for another Judge Call episode 4 for Dominaria United. We have a. This was already answered, Tito Jeff. Yeah, I saw that. When you flicker Sarah Paragon, it will be a new object, and his once per turn ability will be reset, and you can cast again if you have the mana. Right. Okay. What is this? The wrong stream, guys. Not the right stream. Anyway, Thank you everyone for joining me for another episode of Judge Call. Thank you very much to the wonderful people who have supported me in answering some of the calls here. If you have any judge questions, please write them down below. We'll try our best to answer them in the next judge call. And yeah, stay safe. If you guys have any judge questions out of this, feel free to message me or Julito Ang from Cagayan de Oro, Manuel Neri from Cagayan de Oro, also Dino from Cebu if you have any judge questions. And again, acknowledging the presence of Sir Joel and Sir Felix there in the chat. Much appreciated, sirs, for joining me. Again, this has been a TD Judge Call. Thank you very much. And yeah, just, I'm trying to find a cutout, but I don't have a cutout. Anyway, okay. Bye, guys. See ya.